The fantasy football playoffs are upon us, which means our projection beaters this week are more important than ever. We're going to go through some tips and tricks for the playoffs we might think are helpful to you, as well as breaking down the previous week's games. How about those Cowboys? How about those injuries as well? And as always, looking forward to the next week, the first week of the fantasy football playoffs. Get prepared, it's going to be an intense few weeks. This is In the Pocket Across the Pond. I'm Lewis, and I'm joined by the two Alexes. Let's do it. Lads, I want to start the episode this week with a little poem, sonnet, something that I wrote.
They're two different things.
These are two different things. Something that I came up with off the top of my head. Just tell me what you think I'm talking about.
Okay.
Punt, 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 miss field goal, punt, punt, end of half, punt, fumble, punt, 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 punt. Punt, field goal, interception, punt, fumble.
Was there a made field goal in there somewhere?
Yeah.
So it's the Vikings.
That is actually the play-by-play of the Vikings Raiders game.
Imagine going to that game.
That game, to be fair, I was thinking this because, the Vikings won 3-0. Do you think?
I'd be embarrassed.
Do you think? The thing is, obviously, the obvious thing to talk about is how embarrassing that is for the offences. But do you not think that, from a defensive standpoint, that's like, that Chiefs-Rams game from like 5 years ago that was like 53-51 or something? Do you not think that was all
the defence heads are just going mental?
All the defence heads are going crazy because,
I think, if you want my honest opinion, I think that you shouldn't be allowed to start attempting field goals until after you've scored a touchdown. So it prevents any team from scoring less than 6 points.
Okay.
So it avoids like 3-0
garbage. But then if that was the logic for this game, it would have been
0-0. But then good, because neither of these teams deserved a win then. Okay. That's the point. If you can't score a touchdown, you don't deserve to win.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but you think if they weren't allowed that field goal, then it would have had to go to overtime, and then everyone in that stadium would have had to have another 15 minutes of that.
Well, that's unfortunate for them, isn't it? No, it's fine. It's fine because the stadiums are all half empty anyway. When some American football fans, fans.
Can you imagine anything worse than American football fans?
They complain about more and more games every year going international, into the UK, to Germany, but you look at a lot of these teams and the stadiums are half full.
I know, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But whatever. One stadium that was rocking, though, was AT&T last night.
Yep.
Did we catch a glimpse of Tommy DeVito's agent?
Yeah, AT&T.
Sorry.
Not the Cowboys Stadium.
Sorry. I meant
the Cowboys Stadium was rocking
I meant
MetLife. MetLife.
Yeah. These kind of big, modern, kind of just huge blocks of stadiums all look the same. But yeah, did you see? Caught a glimpse of him.
Caught a glimpse of Tommy DeVito's agent looking like he was straight out of
Dick Tracy.
Straight out of Goodfellas, straight out of The Sopranos, straight out of The Godfather.
Yeah.
Any more? Straight out of The Untouchables.
Where's the Gabagool?
Who was he on the phone to?
I don't know who was on the phone to. There's a great Instagram comment. It was like Tommy DeVito's agent kissing his dad. They were both kissing each other on the cheeks, and the top Instagram comment was, "Hey, Paulie, see? The kid's a natural."
We're into the week breakdown now.
Yeah. It was great. I mean, I thought he looked fantastic, this guy. I thought he looked...
Yeah, he did. Giants, won 24-22 against the Packers. I've got a genuine question for the both of you. What do you think the actual odds are that Tommy DeVito is the starter for the Giants next year? Silence speaks louder.
I think it's more likely that it's someone other than him or Daniel Jones. I think that's one most likely. I do think then it goes Daniel Jones, but not far behind is Tommy DeVito.
So, I mean, Tommy DeVito's won 3 games now. What if Tommy DeVito wins 2 more games out of the the last handful, and gives the Giants
a record of, call it 9-7.
9-7, but he's come in and he's won them 5 games. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think then? Do you think he's still just the backup, Sharples?
I think so. I mean, obviously good win last night, but yeah, I mean, one of the wins was the Patriots beat the Commanders the week before. Wouldn't exactly call them trophies. I just think they've got too much money tied up in Daniel Jones. I mean, fair play if DeVito had come in and looked like how sort of Brock Purdy looked when he came in or something like that and really lit it up, you'd be like, fair play. But I don't think it's been that convincing for them to say, here's a guy we're paying $50 million a year or whatever who has been hurt. I think they start Daniel Jones at least for the first few games of next season and just see what they've got before they cast him aside. Too much money.
We know what we've got with Daniel Jones. He's crap, but
yeah, I think if they can get someone in the draft, they do.
Okay.
Yeah. But was that more surprising in terms of the wins last night, or was it the Titans beating
on Monday Night Football?
2 decent games on Monday Night Football. Titans beating the Dolphins 28-27. Yeah, I mean, Tua got knocked out a little bit in this game with the ankle injury.
And Tyreek.
Oh, sorry, I meant Tyreek. I didn't mean Tyreek. Got knocked out with the ankle injury. Tua was in the full game, actually. And I saw him get sacked, didn't bang his head. He went down kind of systematically. That kind of judo.
That's what you got to teach all these quarterbacks.
Was obviously working. But they kind of... I know we're talking about the Dolphins scoring 27 points, but the Titans kind of stifled them, and they gave them at least, 1 or 2 of those touchdowns.
That's what I mean. The Titans sort of beat themselves a little bit, Turnovers, really poor special teams play as well. Like, Titans were losing 13-27 with 2 minutes 40 to play in the game.
And then they remembered how jacked Will Levis is.
The Dolphins have to get some stops in there. Like, I was going to make this general point about the Lions as well, but
the Eagles.
And the Eagles. I'm going to make it now. Dolphins in this game, the Lions in the past few weeks, the Eagles in the past few weeks. It's proof what they say. Defense wins championships. You can have an incredibly explosive offense like those 3 teams have, but at some point, if your defense is utter trash, that catches up with you, and we're starting to see it with those 3 teams. The defense, they can't contain their opponents, which leads to them playing. This is more specifically, I guess, the Eagles recently. They can't contain their opponents. They leads them playing from behind. They're on the back foot. That's never sort of conducive for playing offense the way you want to play it. If you're playing from behind, you cannot control the game and run your offense how you want to if you're always chasing a lead. And that's what's going to happen if these teams' defenses don't get it together.
I don't think there is like a total shutdown defense this year, though, because you've seen teams like the Browns giving up quite a few points in recent weeks. You're talking about the Rams going into Baltimore and putting 31 on the Ravens, you know what I mean? I don't think the Chiefs, who apparently have the best defense they've ever had since Patrick Mahomes has been there, just lost. I don't think there is like a true best defense in the league in terms of one that shuts people down week in, week out, I suppose. But how about him anyway? I don't know what Mr. Alex Sharples has to say about Dak Prescott's MVP chances.
Whoa! That wasn't even a joke. That was not a joke.
No. Same as pretty sure I said last week. He looks really good. I just don't think he'll win MVP. To be fair, it's getting to the point where Eagles have lost a couple now, so the shine's come off Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Mahomes isn't going to win it this year. He's definitely strung together the performances at the right time to do it. He's in the right position to win it. If it was up to me, it'd still either be Tyreek Hill or Christian McCaffrey. I don't know what it is. It's not even me being a Cowboy hater. I don't see it this year. If he finishes the season this strong, then yeah, I just feel like he's got a potato in him before the end of the season, and that'll cost him.
I think we're one more week away from the Cowboys, and we're one more win away from the Niners and the Cowboys in terms of if they both win this weekend. I don't think anyone other than Prescott or Purdy's going to win the MVP. I think we're one more win away from that happening, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's just take your pick, and I'm like, I'm not buying this idea that they're going to give second year Mr. Irrelevant the MVP. I think they're more likely to give America's team, Dak Prescott, former Walter Payton Man of the Year, kind of paid his dues, everyone likes Dak kind of thing. If I'm buying that they would kind of sell that narrative over the Purdy one, personally. Plus there's still this idea that Purdy's a system guy, even though to me it looks like Dak Prescott. You look at Dak Prescott's numbers recently, that's a guy that's running a pretty decent system, you know. The rushing yards are minimal, the turnovers are minimal, the touchdowns are 2 and 3 a game, and he's not playing like a guy that's lighting it up like Russ used to do or like Mahomes does. And I'm absolutely not trying to kind of tarnish anything that Prescott's doing. I'm just trying to compare the two of them, and if anything, I'm kind of in Purdy's favour here, saying kind of what's Dak Prescott doing that's less of a system quarterback than what Brock Purdy's currently doing. I don't know. The numbers are really similar for both of them at the minute as well. They're just playing really clean football, which means that they're in tune with the system that they're running.
So you admit that Purdy is a system quarterback. Thanks, Al.
I mean, Prescott's fantastic for fantasy as well.
Well, can I just say that Cowboys-Eagles game as well, Cowboys 33, Eagles 13, that is flattering. Even 13-33 is a flattering score for the Eagles. They got trounced. They had a fumble recovery touchdown, which sort of that sort of inflated that score. But the Eagles had nothing going offensively, defensively. They got trounced in that game. And obviously that shows you how important that home field advantage is to the Cowboys. I do think they were lucky that they caught the Eagles reeling after getting hammered by the 49ers as well previous week. So
I would hate to be the Seahawks this week.
I would also hate to be Seahawks, and
who get to play the Eagles after really bad losses.
I'm sure we can. I can think of one reason why, which I'll bring up in our trademark projection beater segment later on.
Yes.
But yeah, no, the great performance by the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Fluid, you know. Dak, Lamb ran the ball successfully in this game as well. Great win.
We did get weather as promised this weekend. We got weather, lads.
We got weather.
There was weather around. There was weather. It was doing a weather everywhere. It did affect some of the games, though. That first window seemed like a bit of a slog, especially those early games. If you look at the scores, though, some points ended up being scored.
Bloody hell! I can only imagine the weather inside that dome in Las Vegas. What? That?
Yeah. I mean, goodness me. What do you even say about that?
Nothing. We've spoke about it. Move on.
You could even say the Vikings were Bournemouth and the Raiders were Manchester United.
You could say that. Many have and many will.
But yeah, anyway.
Every week. I mean, I do take it as a compliment because obviously when you're the biggest team and you live rent free in everyone's head, you know, you're gonna get dicks, so it's fine.
But anyway, somehow we did get some points in games. Ravens, Bengals, Bucks, Browns, Bears winning their games and scoring a healthy amount of points. Houston and Jets game was pretty awful for the most part. Obviously, Stroud got the concussion. It looked like a really bad one as well, to be honest. But the Jets ended up winning that game. I suppose let's touch on, before we move on and look at fantasy, let's touch on the Chiefs game and the Seahawks game. I mean, there's one thing to talk about in the Chiefs game, and that is the Kadarius Toney lining up with like the cornerbacks.
I'll take this because obviously there's been a lot said about it. He was offside. Done. He was offside.
He was offside.
There we go. He lined up
the
offside.
Chiefs are frustrated that things aren't going their way, which
That's
is
unfortunate. You saw that. You saw there's a great clip that was going round where it's like Clyde Edwards-Helaire running off the field with his pants completely ripped. Then it goes to the sideline and Chris Jones is losing it to the coach, and then behind them is a coach slamming one of those like Microsoft tablets down in front of a player. And then obviously at the end of the game you had Patrick Mahomes, really sort of chirping up and really unhappy. Andy Reid was as well. This is a team who aren't necessarily that bothered about that call. They know that was the right call. They're bothered because for the first time since Patrick Mahomes has been there, they are by far not the best team in the league, and that's what's frustrating the Chiefs right now. And it was pretty funny. It is funny. I love Patrick Mahomes. Amazing quarterback. I think Patrick Mahomes has already probably done enough to go down as one of the best that there ever has been. But it is so funny when a team that has been, riding high for that long starts struggling. Yeah. It's undeniably hilarious.
Yeah. And we had the 49ers take care of the Seahawks. Sharples, I feel like you are, as Cowboys fans, you're the resident 49ers fan. Business as usual this weekend? Business as usual?
Yeah, I think so. Rolled up, did what they needed to do, put 28 up, made it look pretty easy. Again, and defense as well, because we saw the shootout that the Seahawks had with the Cowboys the other week, and to keep them to 16 is impressive. They got some nice weapons there. And a bit like what you were talking about with the Eagles a few weeks ago, Al, they 7 points in each quarter, doing what they need to do. Doesn't always have to look flashy. We don't always need 50-yard passes to Debo. It's nice when we get them. They've just got so many weapons. They can beat you on the ground. They can beat you in the air. Really look like a juggernaut team and coming into their own these past few weeks.
Yeah, you're talking about Purdy with 368 yards off just 19 completions. McCaffrey, 145 on the ground. Deebo Samuel, 149 through the air. Brandon Ayuk, 126 through the air. And George Kittle with a nice 76 yards as well. They are clicking. But whose victory was the most impressive this week, Lou?
It's the Cowboys.
Yeah,
easily the Cowboys. They dominated the team that many people have been saying is the best team in the league. Then the Cowboys.
I'm going to say the Cowboys as well, obviously. Sharps?
Cowboys.
Come on.
Hey.
JK, it's the Jets. Hi-oh!
No.
Who's the not buying it win? For me, it has to be the Vikings. Because, like I've already established, that shouldn't have been allowed.
Yeah, the Vikings just scored 3 points.
Yeah, Sharps.
And won.
I went for the Patriots just because I'm really low on the Steelers.
What are the Steelers?
I don't know.
The Steelers, right? You're a Steelers fan. 2 weeks ago, you're 7-4, and you're like, my God, we're gonna get a winning season again. 7-4. Arizona and New England next. There we go.
But this was ripe for the ESPN Instagram stats. Like, Steelers are the first team ever to lose 2 consecutive games against 2-10 teams where the quarterback was wearing red shoes. Kind of thing. Yeah. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
Who's the worst team in the league, though?
It's the Raiders, because that is the default answer whenever a team fails to score.
I think it's the Panthers, though, actually.
Okay.
This one was a bit of a shock when I put it down, but it's just the way I'm feeling about them right now. Chargers.
Oh, and you know what, Lou? Read what that says on my notes next to the Panthers.
It says Brock Purdy is a system quarterback.
What underneath that?
Chargers are pretty awful too.
I was umming and ahhing about putting the Chargers in there as well because they are bad.
And because of the context, they are probably, of what we're going to talk about soon in a certain segment.
And
they're going to be bad.
Who's starting for them this next week? Eastern
Stick. Clint Eastern Stick.
Eastern Stick, yes. But anyway, let's move over and look at some fantasy. Top 5 players at each position. Quarterback, we had Lamar, Ridder, Fields, Browning, Stafford.
That is
Running back, Lou, do you want to do this at the same time?
Zeke! Feed him.
Zeke's back. Hall, nice. Cook, Barkley, Mostert. You had White, Mixon, Eckler with nice games. Eckler looked better.
Can I just say...
he looked better.
Can I just say on Rashad White and Joe Mixon, the sort of proving the whole dead zone running back theory...
Wrong.
Dead wrong. Yeah. Like, obviously, draft season, the dead zone is typically running backs rounds 3, 4, 5, 6... maybe 7, but mainly 3, 4, 5, 6. Joe Mixon was a 3rd round running back in drafts this year. Rashad White, 6th round. Obviously, we've seen players like Miles Sanders, Dameon Pierce, Najee Harris. They are the typical dead zone running backs this year. But no, like Rashad White and Joe Mixon are going against the grain there. Then they're doing great, having great seasons.
Chase Brown with a nice game for Cincinnati as well. Play your running backs against Indianapolis, please. Wide receiver, Debo, Drake London, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, Hopkins. We also had nice games from Reed, Wilson, Flowers and Odell. Tight end, Engram and Njoku, likely. Henry, Kittle, Davis Allen for the Rams. But, Sharples, who helped you get into your fantasy playoffs the most this weekend? Who or one player or multiple players helped you get into your fantasy playoffs this previous weekend?
Yeah, I couldn't pick one. All the boys chipped in. Even more sweet when you're lining up against Lewis Brindle, who was he was so ready to be in the playoffs, and it's been tight.
It's not
5 people on the same record. Anyone could have done it, but it's not him because I beat him and put him into the ground and got myself a bye.
Nice one. Briefly on this in the main league, the writing's been on the wall for a few weeks for me. I've been preparing to not be in the playoffs, and I'm not. The writing's been on the wall, and it's sort of like poetic, really, that like I obviously don't get in, and then the morning that I don't get in, my quarterback is also out for the season, so it would have been pointless anyway. I was never going to win a playoff game. You are all better for me.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be more competitive now my team in the main league isn't in the playoffs. Okay. We go again next year.
It's quite interesting that you mentioned that it was poetic, because I've just quickly come up with a quick poem for you.
Okay,
we don't want to hear it. Next up.
You're really bad at fantasy. Ha ha ha. He he he.
Not as good as my poem at the start, up top.
It's not as good. Yours is beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I thought that some players had some real good confidence booster games heading into the fantasy playoffs, the likes of Justin Fields, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler. The thing about Barkley and Eckler is, now these are obviously 2 really high profile, really heavily rostered running backs who you're playing no matter what. Barkley's playoff schedule is horrid. Eckler's is great. Let's say that the 2 teams in the first round of the playoffs, one of them had Barkley, one of them had Eckler. Who are you taking?
I think Saquon Barkley's looked pretty good all year, regardless.
So it doesn't matter matchup.
Yeah, it doesn't matter matchup. I think out of the 2, Barkley's looked. He's been solid all year. It's just obviously that team has ebbed and flowed and stuff. But Saquon Barkley's been a really nice looking running back in real life as well. He's looked really. He's not had like these sort of meme plays that Austin Eckler's had, where he's like running amazingly slow. Barkley's still got it. So
yeah, but I mean, you had some kind of name stars of years gone by in here in terms of like Lamar, Zeke. Not necessarily that they're not stars now, but do you know those players that they're back in at the right time. Cup is in there. You know what I mean? Engram Kittle is having a nice game. Just on the playoffs. So I'm just thinking here, if we're going to give people advice in terms of what you look to do to shore up your roster in terms of your playoffs, I would have probably done this maybe a week ago or so, but I think you've still got time potentially this week. I would have made sure that I had 2 defenses on my team to either block someone for picking up a team with a really good defense, or, for instance, in one of my teams, I have the Chiefs and the Browns because I know they've got really good matchups in those 2 weeks of the playoffs. I suppose when we're looking at if you don't have a bye in the first week of your playoffs and this is it this next week, Lou, in terms of start-sit decisions, are you going projection? Are you going ceiling? Because it's a real... This is knockout. Now, we're talking knockout fantasy football. Are you going projection, safe stuff, or ceiling plays?
Well, it's sort of twofold because, like, I know in a lot of fantasy formats, the playoffs take place over 2 weeks. If your game is taking place over sort of 2 weeks worth of games, I'd say go for the projection, go for the safer floor.
In the first week, at least, yeah.
In the first week, that is, yeah. And then you know what you need the following week. If it's 1 week, you just got to call your shot on, guys. It'll feel great if it comes off, and if it doesn't come off, listen, you went with what you thought was the right decision. I think, yeah, you got to shoot your shot in the playoffs, haven't you?
Sharples, let's say all season, somebody like a Sam Laporta, I don't know, a Jamar Chase, a Mike Evans, a Stephon Diggs has been kind of seeing you through and winning your weeks. But especially in the case of someone like a Stephon Diggs, who you feel like you're never going to bench, he's slowing up a little bit. It's not looking very good. Let's say you have a decision to make in terms of someone like Stephon Diggs, or let's say you have a Garrett Wilson or a Zay Flowers or a DeAndre Hopkins or a DJ Moore on your roster. Do you know these players who are kind of heating up a lot now? What I'm basically saying is, are you going with the new hotness, the player that's on a bit of a heater at the minute? Are you sticking with the guys that you drafted early and that kind of got you there in the first place? Because these are decisions that people are going to have to make in terms of guys that have been on the bench and heating up versus guys that have been in the starting lineup all season and maybe tapering off a little bit. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, entirely dependent on your roster construction, but I think you've got to ride the hot hand. I mean, you'll feel like an idiot if a Diggs goes off or something like that. But if you've got a guy who's been absolutely smashing it for the past few weeks, you've got a guy that you drafted early on who's not doing it. We're in the present. We're in the now. We're not 14 weeks ago or 6 or 7 weeks ago when they were still firing it in for you. You've got to be ruthless. If you've got a guy who's been really good for the past few weeks, he's got what looks to be a nice matchup. I think you got to ride the hot hand and just take the risk that you might get some egg on your face.
Yeah. Because, I mean, at the minute, mentioning Stephon Diggs, I think it's a real bit of a risk to play Stephon Diggs at the minute. But anyway, into the busts. Some big fantasy names from this season in here. Mike Evans, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jalen Hurts, Stephon Diggs, Jamar Chase, Jared Goff.
There's a name missing there.
Go on.
Who I mentioned last week, and you two both shot me down. Put Zach Moss on there, please.
He got 10 points, didn't he?
He was he got like 9 points, and he was projected 16. So that by our logic is a bust. Put him on there. I told you Zach Moss wasn't the guy anymore. He's lost it. Okay.
I'm playing him again. I'm not playing him again this week because I've got a bye.
Oh yes, me too. Zach Moss. I mean, we think 9 points is all right for Zach Moss. Me and Sharples like him. You're the one who holds Zach Moss to this kind of absolute pedestal and thinks 9 points is abysmal for him.
Okay.
Yeah,
well done.
Not great, but I mean, with all of those players, I would say, obviously, you're putting them in. I'm just a tiny bit worried about Diggs and Laporta. It's not been super kind of smooth sailing recently for those two players. Is anyone heading to the booth, Lou, this week?
Brandon Staley. I know we keep talking about Brandon Staley, the Chargers head coach. But do you think that do you think that Justin Herbert getting injured, which we'll talk about in a moment, is a bit of a scapegoat? And he's like, oh, quarterback's injured. Mike Williams got injured. Oh, can't do anything. Do you think that's going to be the excuse to keep Brandon Staley on?
I mean, it shouldn't be, because they've been bad even with Herbert there, and it's like, on paper, that roster could be quite good, and they've pretty much wasted a season where people thought they'd be pushing for the playoffs at the very least. So, I think last season I was a bit of a Staley fan. Like, he was getting it wrong on the fourth downs and doing some mad stuff, but an eccentric coach, bit of a an offensive mind type thing. But no, they've stagnated this season. Keenan Allen's going to be another year older next year. Yeah. No, I think they need to get someone new in.
True. Although it is probably going to be Bill Belichick in the booth, because he was getting prepped for on College game day. Do you see him?
Oh yeah, he
was warming up. He was warming up for the booth. That's all I'm saying.
I'd like to scratch what I just said about Sam Laporte. By the way, I was thinking of Dalton Kincaid.
Okay. Can't remember what you said.
I said that it's not been smooth sailing for him when it very much has been, apart from this week.
It's been incredibly smooth sailing for Sam Laporta.
I meant Dalton Kincaid.
Okay.
How our player picks did. Remember last year we used to lead into this by saying something like, "We love being accountable."
We did. Oh yeah, we did.
And I certainly love being accountable when it's a week where I get 4 big time hits, and I'm not having you two calling Deebo Samuel like some kind of ice cold take saying that Deebo was going to be unreal, because we knew he was going to be unreal, because I made up for that with saying Stafford was going to be great in Baltimore, and he was. 23.6 fantasy points for Matthew Stafford, hit. Javonte Williams, 18 points, hit. Deebo Samuel, monster, hit, 34 points. And Isaiah Likely in my playoff lineup. Do you like what I did, Lou? What did you do this week, Luke?
Not much.
Not much at all. I mean, it is something to be said that
you
pick players who just had nice games.
I proved that the projections are accurate.
Yeah.
Because, I will just say the Chuba Hubbard one is well annoying. He got 11.6 points, 87 rushing yards. The Panthers in that loss ran for 204 yards. How did he not have a bigger game? Yeah, whatever.
Sharples had one of everything, apart from a goose. We had Dobbs, who got benched. Mixon was a very nice pick, though. Collins got injured, which is annoying. I hope Lou's got a bit more information on that. And Gerald Everett. I like how I just kind of... Did anyone notice that I didn't mention Mike Evans?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Anyway.
Was he a goose?
No, he had a really bad game.
It was like one catch.
One catch.
Yeah. A big chunk of his targets came in the final quarter as well. I mean, you play Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield, he's just... I think he's got that job.
Yeah, probably.
He's got moxie, as Jason Garrett said at the weekend.
He's got moxie. He's got Evans. He's got Chet Johnson.
He's got that stuff in his neck. Whatever that means.
He's got that dog in him.
Injuries/news, Lou.
Injuries/news. Mainly injuries this week, I'll be honest with you. Just want to do a little bit of housekeeping from last week. We just missed this when we recorded. Christian Kirk, a little bit out of nowhere, he's going to require core muscle surgery for a groin issue. He's done for the year. Christian Kirk, his season's over.
Do people want to stop getting injured?
Speaking of people whose seasons are over, Justin Herbert exited the Chargers game with a finger injury. We now know that he fractured the index finger on his throwing hand. He's going to require surgery. Justin Herbert's season is over. You sent us this screenshot, Al, of this bit of news, and you said there's going to be some rule changes incoming.
No one wants to see him added.
I agree. I agree. People are going to moan about it. People are going to be like, "Oh, they're wrapping the quarterbacks in bubble wrap now," and it's acres away from what the league used to be. To these people, I will say, that sports package, if you're in the UK, Sky Sports, if you're in, America, whatever package you have, do you feel good about paying for that package when you're watching Easton Stick versus Aidan O'Connell? Or, Jake Browning versus
Easton
Josh Dobbs?
Stick. Sounds like I'm watching something on National Geographic.
We do not want to see no shade on these backup quarterbacks.
Big time shade on them. I
No,
don't watch them.
I know, yeah.
Rubbish.
I'm just saying, teams need backup quarterbacks, but they need to be backup quarterbacks, not guys who end up starting half the bloody season. Nobody. There's going to be more rules, and there should be, because I don't want to watch all these backup players. I want to see Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm. There's going to be rule changes, definitely.
Yeah. Elsewhere, quarterbacks, CJ Stroud is in concussion protocol.
That was a hard.
Yeah, it was like reminiscent of Tua from last year. Really, he falls backwards, bonks his head on the ground. Not really great. So Stroud potentially out this week. Keep an eye on that. Nico Collins exited the game very early with a calf injury. Yet still unclear the severity of it just yet. Just keep an eye on the practice reports. Josh Jacobs exited his game in the fourth quarter with a knee injury. You could sort of see him limping on the sideline. Another guy I had on my team, great. It's like they knew they weren't in the playoffs. Practice report this week has him dealing with a quad issue, not hamstring territory. Chris? Hamstring.
Yeah.
Keep tabs on that. Raiders play on Thursday, so I reckon Jacobs is in danger of missing that game. Justin Jefferson returned and got injured straight away after 2 catches. He came back from injury, set that record, broke that Randy Moss's record, and immediately got injured again.
Randy Moss is
quickest to what was it?
All right.
What what it was?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how history repeats.
Youngest. Sorry.
It's crazy how history repeats itself, isn't it? Because this is exactly what Cooper Kupp was like last year, in the year after he was completely insane.
Justin Jefferson exited the first half, chest injury, pretty hard to be fair. He was actually taken to hospital as a bit of a precaution, but it was an internal injury. He was shortly discharged, considered day-to-day. The Vikings actually think he has a decent chance to play this upcoming week.
Why would you? I suppose I keep forgetting they won.
They won. They're still in the hunt, really. Same game, Alexander Mattison was also ruled out in the second half of an ankle sprain. Don't know the severity of it yet. If you're unfortunate enough to have to play Mattison, keep an eye on that. Geno Smith didn't play. That was sort of the big news going into that game. He was out with dealing with a groin injury. Drew Lock started for Seattle. There's no word yet if Smith will be back Monday night versus the Eagles. I know Drew Lock looked okay, but you would think that sort of does downgrade some of those pass catching options. And then Tyreek Hill was sort of in and out of that Dolphins game, as you alluded to before, Al, with an ankle injury. Not a great sign. Keep tabs on it. As somebody who wants Tyreek Hill to get that 2,000-yard season, I have him in a couple of fantasy leagues as well. Seen a clip of him where he was talking to his wife, and his wife's like, "Get back in there," and it's like, that's great support, but as someone in my position, don't get back in there. Don't start legging it around on an injured ankle. Don't.
Come on.
But yeah, really grim injury news once again.
We'll start looking forward to week 15. I'm really happy that Tommy DeVito's agent got all the kind of coverage that he did, all the memes out of it that he did. But the sad thing for us is that everyone now knows who introduces us to our next segment.
Yes.
Come in. We've flown him in.
Come on.
It's, of course...
Forget about it.
Oh, yes. Forget about it. You all knew he sounds like that. Come on. At the quarterback position, forget about it, players that are in your lineup for the fantasy playoffs week 1. Don't worry about it. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, Pat Mahomes.
Forget about it.
Running back, McCaffrey, Karen, Kamara, Etienne, Barkley, Mostert, Bijan Robinson, Rashad White, Josh Jacobs, if he does play, although as Lou's just said, might look doubtful. Gibbs, Breece Hall's in there as well.
Forget about it.
Wide receiver. Of course, you're playing Tyreek Hill if he plays. Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Chase, Diggs, Amon-Ra, Evans, Puka, Kupp, Pittman, Debo.
Forget about it.
It's a long old list.
Oh, yeah, and you could even throw Ayuk in there as well. Tight end, Kelsey, Hawkinson, Laporta, Kittle.
Forget about it.
It's a short list. Into the projection beaters. Players that we think are going to outscore the ESPN projections by 4 or more fantasy points. I'm going to start with my quarterback. Bit of deja vu from last week. I'm going to go Matt Stafford, projected 17 versus Washington. Basically copy and paste my argument from last week in here for Stafford. He's kicking on for fantasy into the fantasy playoffs, and I'm certainly grateful for that. 23 fantasy points per game is what he's averaging over the past 3 weeks, and this Rams team really does look dangerous if they can secure a wildcard spot. They just went into Baltimore and almost upset the consensus best team in the AFC currently, and he has a far nicer matchup this weekend against Washington. If you're unaware, the Washington Commanders are crap. So I think the 253 that he's been averaging recently is just a baseline for him in this game, especially if he gets Kupp and Nakua popping off together again. So Stafford for me this week. Lou?
You know how I was throwing shade on all of those backup quarterbacks?
Yeah.
I'm going Jake Browning.
Boom.
Cincinnati Bengals. Projected 14.4. I'll tell you why. Now, he has had a couple of decent games, real-life NFL and fantasy football, but the main reason I'm taking him here is yards after catch.
Yak.
The Bengals' opponents this week are the Vikings, who on the season have been the third worst in the whole league in terms of giving up yards after the catch. And that's the recipe for the Bengals now. Give Browning short, manageable throws, keep his completion percentage high, and let the stud wide receivers do the heavy lifting. So it's more of a confidence pick in Chase and Higgins than Browning, I guess. That's how I'm excusing it in my own head. Browning, he has looked serviceable, in tune with these weapons. I think that'll continue in what is probably going to be a pretty unpredictable game. 2 backup quarterbacks playing in this one, 2 pretty reeling teams in the Vikings and the Bengals, but who are both somehow well in the playoff hunt, so they're both going to want to win this game. I'm going to go Browning.
Sharps?
I'm going for Jordan Love, quarterback for the Packers, going up against Tampa Bay, giving up the 5th most points to fantasy quarterbacks. I also think this will be a bit of an open game. Packers have shown that they can put up points, but they'll also concede them. Buccaneers, when they want to be, can put up points, so should be a pretty interesting one. And although he had a bit of a blip last week, Jordan Love, not a great game against the Giants. Going into that, over 20 fantasy points in his previous 3 games, 3 touchdowns in each of the last 2 of them as well. It's risky. He is a bit up and down, but I just think when he's on, he does look like he could be something, and I think this is a good matchup for him. So I'm going Jordan Love, projected 18.1 points this week.
Nice. And if I would listen to any of us on the Jordan Love front, it's Sharples. Me and Lou have tried our luck with Jordan Love in these projection beaters in the past and not had much luck, but Sharples with 2 hits so far when he's picked Jordan Love, so he knows when to pick him. So there we go. Tight end. Let's go all the way down to tight end. I'm going to go Tucker Kraft.
Okay.
Tight end for the Green Bay Packers.
Who? You're doing Sharples' little stupid...
No.
Stupid cheating strategy.
No. I'm going Tucker Kraft, rookie tight end for the Green Bay Packers, projected 5.6 versus Tampa Bay. Now, Kraft has been making some waves since Musgrave has been on IR. The Packers like both of these rookie tight ends, and I absolutely like Kraft to beat that 5.8 projection this week without Musgrave in there. Tampa Bay are bottom 8 against fantasy tight ends, and Christian Watson isn't there. Kraft just had a nice game this week. I'm not playing the projection game. I'm helping our friends who might be in deep leagues.
No one is playing Tucker Kraft.
If you're in a pinch in a really deep league, you can play Tucker.
Sharples, you have something to say.
Sharps.
Yeah, it just seems to be a bit of a discrepancy between your number and the official ESPN fantasy app, Al, which appears to be projecting him at a hefty 7 points this week.
Well, you see, well, there we go. It's gone up now, and I'm fine putting that on there because I adjust the projections when I do the post for Instagram as well, in the pocket across the pond at Instagram.
Sorry, guys, I'm just putting my wellies on because the sweat petering off your head is making the surface.
Well, that just shows you that
Moist.
ESPN, ever since I did this pick, ESPN have just got more and more confident in the young Tucker Craft. So I took a craft. Lou?
I am going to go with Patrick Fryermuth, Pittsburgh Steelers tight end, projected 9.6. That's a real tight end projection. Okay.
Mine's 7.
Yeah, Fryermuth, his first game back from injury a month ago, was a complete dud. But in the 3 games since then, he's led the Pittsburgh Steelers in targets. In spite of that, though, he has had a couple of underwhelming performances, but to be fair, they have been against a couple of decent tight end defenses in Arizona and New England.
I'm sorry.
What was that? Was that... he's frantically Googling Tucker Craft projection. Was that?
Yeah, and then a stupid ESPN advert popped up.
Okay, that's what I thought happened. Fryermuth gets a much more favourable matchup this week against the Colts. They've been giving up 14 fantasy points a game to opposing tight ends on the season. Fryermuth should be in your lineups, so that makes one of him. If you're talking about him and Tucker Craft,
Sharps, who have you got?
I've gone for Tyler Conklin. I actually picked him 3 years ago, and his projection was only 1 point. So projected 1 point against the Bills 3 years ago. No, it's 7.7 against the Miami Dolphins this week. I don't know why. I think maybe because the Jets offense actually showed a little bit of fight. I've got Jets fever. I know it's going to hurt me. But over the past 2 games, Conklin's had 15 targets, and he's a nice little safety valve. The Miami Dolphins defense, you don't really know what you get out of them. In the middle of the pack, and it feels like 1 week they're unbelievable and one week they're terrible. But if they're going to be good, hopefully that's a bit more work, sort of the little quick dump-offs. If they're going to be bad, then maybe you can break off a few nice plays. But yeah, going for Tyler Conklin, becoming a bit of a bigger part in this Jets offense, and hopefully this Jets offense is something that's going to be worth picking up this week. But not convinced, but 7.7, we move.
Okay. Running back, I'm going to go Jalen Warren, projected just the 12 at Indianapolis. Play your running backs against Indianapolis like we said earlier. I'm just going to use a comparison from this past week. So let's say this past week, Joe Mixon, he can be our Najee Harris, the ground and pound guy. Joe Mixon scored 21 fantasy points against Indianapolis this past week. Chase Brown, he can be our Jalen Warren, the kind of more explosive guy. He just had 19.5 fantasy points against Indianapolis this week. Repeat the same formula, and that's a hit on Jalen Warren. Lou?
I'm going to go DeAndre Swift.
Whoa! Love it.
Your Prince, DeAndre Swift, Philadelphia Eagles running back, projected 13.6. Now, I know that a lot of us were miffed a few weeks ago that DeAndre whiffed, but let me give your confidence a lift because he's going to be a gift this week.
Okay. What is this?
Poetry week. I'm in the pocket across the pond. He's not on the best run of form, DeAndre Swift. No touchdowns in the past 3 weeks. Only 17 fantasy points across the past 3 games as well. But to be fair, that has been a bit of a gauntlet of rush defences that he's had to face. Had Buffalo 3 weeks ago, who have been sort of middle of the pack on the year, fairly alright rush defence, and Swift did actually gain 80 yards on them, but wasn't a great fantasy day. And then he faced arguably the 2 best defensive lines in the league, San Francisco and a Cowboys team in Dallas. Predictably, Swift couldn't get anything going at all in those games. He was averaging less than 30 yards from scrimmage in both of those games. This week that isn't going to be the case. He's against the Seahawks, who have been leaking yards and points all over the field in the past few weeks. Specifically on the ground, Seattle have been giving up almost 160 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground per game over the last 3 games. This is finally a defense that Swift and this Eagles rushing attack can well and truly exploit. And I think that's what they're going to do. You know, a couple of games playing on the back foot for Philadelphia, they're going to want to get back on track. Play the way they want to with this ground game, get it rolling again, give this offense that extra bit of dynamism that it's been lacking. Swift, and I think he's the key to that, really. So I think he's going to have a big week.
Sharps?
I've gone for David Montgomery, running back for the Detroit Lions. Going up against Denver. Denver giving up the most points to fantasy running backs. And you know what you're going to get with Montgomery. He's had an unbelievable floor since his bye week 6 weeks ago. 17, 17, 15. Good solid points. He's projected 12.7. I'm not worried about him missing. You're probably relying on him getting a goal line touchdown to get the hit. But I think against this Denver defense, he's going to have the chance to do that multiple times. Obviously not quite as exciting as Jahmyr Gibbs, but Jahmyr Gibbs is a few points higher, and they have been splitting the workload pretty equally. So I'm hedging my bets a little bit, going for the slightly lower projection. David Montgomery, 12.7 against the Broncos.
Okay, wide receivers to round us off. I'm going to go Odell Beckham Jr., projected 10.9 versus the Jaguars. 10 targets for both Odell and Flowers this past week versus the Rams. They both look like they're settling in at the right time here at the business end of the season. Flowers is the one that's on a bit of a heater in fantasy terms, but I think just down the stretch, that experience that Beckham's got is going to be relied on a bit more by Lamar. Plus, playing the projection game as well for us in terms of our projection beaters. I like the 10 points for Odell compared to the 13 for Flowers. A bit more leeway there. But in general, for this first round of the fantasy playoffs, I think Odell is going to be very helpful as a flex or a wide receiver 3, seeing as he's had double-digit fantasy points in 4 of the past 5 weeks. So, I think Odell has another nice game this week.
So you're telling us you're a coward?
I'm a coward.
Because I'm going for Zay Flowers.
Oh, okay. Flowers versus Beckham. Let's have it.
What happened last time? I believe when we went head-to-head with Pittman versus the other Colts guy.
Pittman versus Downs.
I won pretty emphatically.
And me and Sharples have done a Zeke versus Ramondre.
You have.
In the past as well.
Very exciting.
I believe Ramondre won that from memory.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Zay Flowers, projected 13.7. Think, I'm sort of making like the argument that you made for Beckham for Flowers, to be fair, because I think we're seeing one of these rookie league winners that usually emerge towards the back half of the season. Obviously, in Houston, Tank Dell seemed to be that game-changing rookie, the waiver wire, dart throw steal, but he's injured. He's gone. Goodbye, Tank Dell, until next year. Flowers has been putting up a really nice season and seems to be really kicking on. Already leads his team in targets by far. Do you want to know how many targets Zay Flowers has on the season?
Way too many considering the fantasy points that he's put out.
He's got 90. Do you want to know how many targets Odell Beckham Jr. has on the season?
55.
56.
Ooh.
So, he's leads the team in targets by far. Obviously, granted, Andrews' injury might skew the numbers slightly, but even before Andrews got injured, Flowers was still the team's target leader, not Andrews. And over the past couple of games, Flowers, he's been turning those targets into fantasy value. He's had his best 2 fantasy performances of the year this past 2 games. And then, and the Ravens are going to be pushing for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon with a slew of pretty tough matchups to come. And it starts right now with the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. They're going to need to align the playmakers, Lamar, Flowers, Beckham, as you've said. The Jags, they're a tough team to play. They're a bit unpredictable. They're a bit like the Bills, really, in that they have the ability to beat anyone on the day, but they also have the ability to lose against anybody. So I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup. What is predictable about it, though, is the Jags are going to give up yards through the air, which is fantastic for Zay Flowers. Over the past 3 games, Jacksonville have given up over 300 passing yards per game. They've been the most exploitable secondary over that stint and throughout a lot of the season, really. The Ravens, they've got the weapons to take advantage of it. I think Flowers continues his good run. And to be fair, I think Odell has a chat. I think both these guys could have really nice weeks.
Sharps.
I've gone for Tyler Lockett. Wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. Projected 12.1. And I was very surprised to see this, just obviously going off reputation. I know they've not been great this season, but apparently Philadelphia are giving up the most points for fantasy wide receivers at the minute.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf has really come into his own recently, and I just think that there's going to be extra attention on him. He might also get himself kicked out like he did last week when I believe he suplexed a fellow. Textbook German suplex.
It was more than grabbing the
German suplex, yeah. You can't do
that.
that.
It was? Oh.
Okay.
But yeah, I just think he's going to attract attention, and that's just going to give room for sneaky, smooth-headed Tyler Lockett to sneak in and get himself a 60-yard touchdown. He's been the guy that he's been for the past few years. He's very boom bust. But again, he's probably going to finish as a top 24 wide receiver, which you never think he's going to because he always gets drafted in the 8th round. So it's hard to pick him because one week he'll get 23, the next week he'll get about 5 points. But I just think this might be his week. A little bit of uncertainty at the quarterback position. I'm not sure if it's going to be Geno or the other fellow. What's his name?
Drew Lock.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm going for Tyler Lockett. I don't think I've picked him all season. I think it's quite a low projection for a man who can easily get 25 with a flick of the wrist.
Yeah, more like Drew Breakin.
Yeah. Does Tyler Lockett's smooth head still count when he has his helmet on?
Yeah. You can
I was just looking at his photo and he does have a very smooth head.
Yeah,
okay.
Fair play. Game tiers for this week. I obviously will let Sharples take it. I think there's a few good games.
Well, it's not for you to say.
It's not for me to say.
It's for Alex Sharples to say.
Yeah, I mean, I am obviously eternally pessimistic, and to be fair, I was proved quite soundly wrong in some cases last week because a lot of the mez turned into good. But I'll start off with two bad uns, 2 bad eggs. I'm going with Raiders Chargers. I'm going with Panthers Falcons.
Yeah. Falcons just make all the games boring, no matter who they're against. You know, never mind being against the worst team in the whole league. Love to see Raiders Chargers in prime time.
Yeah.
Got quite a chunky meh section. Probably a couple could have qualified for good, but I kept them down there. We've got the Bengals Vikings, the Colts Steelers, the Saints Giants, the Browns Bears, the Packers against the Buccaneers, the Patriots against the Chiefs, Texans Titans, and Rams Commanders.
Oh, you see, that's mainly where we differ. I think Browns Bears, Packers Buccaneers, and Rams Commanders could be really good games. Especially that first one, to be honest with you. Browns are kicking on. Bears are kicking on. Browns look like they've steadied the ship a bit. Yeah.
Into the good category, we've got the unbelievable this one. I had to pinch myself. Lions Broncos, Cardinals 49ers. I think I've got a good feeling about. And listen, you can say they've not been painting in the corridor. There's a lot of damp. I might have some kind of mold in my lungs, but god damn it, Dolphins Jets.
Dolphins Jets. It's going to be an interesting one, definitely. That Jets defense is really good, so we'll see.
All I'm saying is, seeing as last year we became the Denver Broncos hating podcast, we've got to kind of acknowledge possibly the greatest in-season turnaround by Vance Joseph and this defense. You know, of any NFL team ever.
It feels like since they gave up 70 points, they haven't given up 70 points
altogether
since that game. Like,
I mean, and the 7-6, they probably should have won last week. Yeah, I mean, what a turnaround.
Really good. Yeah. And this is why you stick with your head coaches, Carolina.
Exactly.
Anyway,
into the top tier. I know there were some questions about them last week, but I still think they're going to give Cowboys a run for the money. It's the Bills Cowboys. Eagles Seahawks should be the primetime one, and the Jags Ravens.
Okay, nice. It says a lot when I feel like the only thing in Buffalo's favour is that it is at their home field.
Yeah.
If this was neutral ground, if this was at the Cowboys, I feel like it'd be a non-contest. I feel like the Cowboys are stomping them. But that cold air, Josh Allen, he works his magic in that cold air, and that's going to be a tough place for this Cowboys defence. It's going to be a tough place for this defence to go and sort of get up for and sort of play the way they want to play.
It is indeed. Still going to win, though.
Yep.
Well, that's going to do it. Congratulations if you made it into your fantasy playoffs. Commiserations if your name's Lewis Brindle and you didn't.
Cheers.
Think smart. Hopefully, you don't need to think at all this week because you got to buy. But think smart. Take some gambles. If it's a 1 weeker, if it's a 2 weeker, get those projections in, those nice projections in, and kind of test the waters. But best of luck. Hopefully you tune in again next week. If not, if you get knocked out of your fantasy playoffs, see you around draft season or next August.
Oh yeah,
I just want to
stop
say,
listening. Do not listen
dead
if you're
quick.
not playing. Yeah.
Just take the time to gloat now, because if you're in the playoffs, next year you might not be. Next year you might be 2-10. Enjoy it while you can. Rub everyone's noses in it. Who cares?
I will throw it out there.
Steve.
I will throw it out there. You're insinuating that I was 2-10. That is far from the case. Far from the case.
Well, you may as well have been, mate.
I may as well have been.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, I didn't make the playoffs, so I would have rather just lost every game, so I had something of note about my team.
Yeah. Well, good luck, and thank you very much for listening.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye.
See ya.